The countdown is on. I gauge swatched and my swatch told me that I was on gauge. I think it lied, and I already know which colors I would pick, but I'm not going to tell you. You'll have to wait and see. Hi and welcome, or welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Mathilde. I'm a French knitter, and if you're not new here, thank you so much for coming back. I really appreciate it. Now, today is going to be another podcast episode, and as you may realize, it's been a while since I filmed a podcast. I think it's been around a month, so I've got loads to share. I've got two finished objects, one of which you already know if you watch my other videos because I posted a project vlog for it, and another one which you have never seen on the podcast but you have seen on the channel in my vlogs, and I managed to finish it really quickly, so we're gonna be able to talk about that. And then I've got, updates on my whips, a couple of new cast-ons, and some acquisition which is not yarn but knitting related. So we've got a lot to talk about, so let's start with what I'm wearing. I'm wearing my camisole number 10 by My Favorite Things Knitwear, which I knitted early last year, I want to say. This is knitted in Knitting for Life pure silk, held double in the colorway cream, which is my favorite white colorway from Knitting for Life, and I really love this piece. The only thing is that the armhole is a tiny bit too deep, so you can see the start of my bra, so I wish I had shortened that a little bit, but otherwise I really love the shaping of it, and it was a really fast knit and enjoyable knit, and that is probably the knit that got me my tendonitis, because I think I knitted it in like a week and I should not have done that. But let's move on to my first finished object, and as I said, I uploaded a project vlog for it, so I'm not going to bore you too much with details on this one. If you're curious about anything, I invite you to either watch my previous podcasts or to watch the project vlog, which hopefully I've given all of the infos in the project vlog, but sometimes I forget to say things here and there, but hopefully all of it is there. So this is my Marielle Blouse, which is a pattern by Marielle Sweater, and I love it. I'm not wearing any of my finished objects because it's too warm to do so, but hopefully you guys don't mind. I knitted it in Tin Pigment in the colorway white, which I think is like 1002, held with alpaca 1x0, held double in the colorway 02, and the pattern is for a fingering plus lace, but I held the lace double because the alpaca one is a little bit thinner than a regular mohair, and so to have a fabric that I liked, I wanted to hold it double. And I'm really happy with the finished piece. I've been able to wear it a tiny bit, so I feel like I can give you a little bit more of my thoughts behind what I think about it, which is nice. I'm not gonna go into, I don't remember where I was at in the last podcast. I think I must have been on one of the sleeves. I knitted the sleeves to pattern. I picked up the exact number of stitches that I had to for my size, and I just didn't do any decreases because there's no shaping in the sleeves. I don't remember if the pattern suggests a certain length for the sleeve, but it does say that the lace is going to grow widthwise as well as lengthwise, so my sleeve pre-blocking were pretty short, but they grew to the perfect length, so I was really happy about that. And it's a really oversized piece. Now the sleeves are very oversized, but I really like that look, and that was kind of what drew me to the pattern anyway, but it's not for everyone, so if you don't like that, keep that in mind. But I was still kind of worried. I think these are the largest sleeve I've ever knitted, and so I was kind of worried that they would get in my way, but I have not found that to be the case. They do sometimes bother me when I'm knitting. I have to kind of pull them a bit, but not in a way that's annoying. Like, I notice it because I don't usually do it, but I don't mind it. So again, it depends on personal preference. The body itself is also very wide. I haven't measured, oh no, I have in the project vlog I mentioned the finished circumference, but I think it's like around 30 centimeters of positive ease on me. I think I could have gone for a size down, to be honest. It's very oversized. I don't mind it, but it's not necessarily my preferred look either. I'll have to keep that in mind for the future. But I think I chose the size that I chose because my gauge, I don't know, I feel like my gauge is really, I'm having trouble picking up the right size, which you'll see in the next couple of minutes. Yeah, I have trouble picking up sizes and making a garment that fits exactly how I want it, which is really annoying, but can happen even after you've been knitting for like 3 to 4 years. So a good reminder. And one thing that I also wanted to note is that I have a little bit of like the yarn coat somewhere, which you can see here. So I think I just have to go with like a needle and kind of pick at it to make sure it evens out a bit. But because this is around where I weaved in some ends, it's a little bit tricky, but I'm gonna try to do that soon-ish. But yeah, it's kind of annoying because it's right in the middle of the body, but also I don't really mind, so we'll see. Let's talk quickly about the numbers for this project. So I cast this on the 8th of May. Now, if you watch the vlog, and I probably mentioned it in the podcast previously as well, I did have to frog basically the whole back panel and reknit it. So that kind of, you know, made me knit it a bit less quickly than if I hadn't had to do that. And I finished this on the 2nd of July, and so that took me 55 days to knit, which is still pretty quick, especially considering I had to frog the whole back panel and reknit it. So happy with that. And as for the yarn, now it's a bit of an estimate because I used leftover yarns from another project and I had to buy more skeins, but I didn't use all of the skeins. And yeah, I'm not exactly sure how many skeins I used exactly for this project, but I'm gonna say I used 6 skeins of the Tin Pyrgint and 6 skeins of the Alpaca one, and that rounds up to a total yarn cost of 88.5 euros. The pattern cost is 10.63 euros, and so that makes it for a total of 99.13 euros, which I guess I could have gone with less yarn if I had knitted a size down, so that also would have been nice to know. But again, that's just how knitting is. Sometimes you can't always have what you want, but I'm still fairly happy with a knit that ends up below 100 euros, so happy with that. As I said before, the Tin Pyrgint isn't my favorite. I do find it itchy, more so than the Pyrgint by Sandnes Garn, and I don't mind the Alpaca one by Easier, but I do prefer mohair, so I think in the future I would rather use a mohair. Also because of the fact that it's a little bit thinner than a mohair, it just means that I have even more trouble getting gauge and having a fabric that I like. So things to keep in mind. But that is the Marielle blouse. Also, I feel like the lace really blocked out really well in blocking, so I was a little bit worried about it, but turned out fine. Now, as I mentioned, the next finished object is one you have not seen on the podcast before. I did not think I would get around finishing this so quickly, but I was kind of hoping I did. The reason is I'm going off tomorrow for 2 weeks to Brittany, where some of my family lives, and it's not really a holiday. I'm going to be working from there, but I do have a couple of days here and there off, and I really wanted to have a striped sweater for that because it's quite near the beach, and I could see myself wearing this piece on the beach, even just outside in this kind of cool weather. I could see myself knitting it whilst I was there too, so if I hadn't finished this in time, that's what I would have done, but I just could not put this knit down. So without further ado, let me just introduce this piece, and that is the Olga Sweater by Petite Knit, which was on my plans for this summer, but at the beginning of the year it wasn't really on my plans, but I'm so happy I knitted it. I'm in love. I don't have any unused skein or like leftover skein from the blue color, but I do have one in the speckled yarn. So the yarn that I used is Peer Gynt by Sandnes Garn. This one is in the colorway Almond Tweed, and it's got these tweedy bits, hopefully you can see. Because of the tweed, it's actually 75% Norwegian wool and 25% Peruvian tweed from wool, whereas the regular Peer Gynt is 100% Norwegian wool. And so the blue that I used is the Night Sky colorway, and both I think are from the Petite Knit like color collection from Sandnes Garn. So basically I used the same colors as Petite Knit, the same yarn. I love Peer Gynt, I've used it before, it's one of my favorite yarns, so I was really happy to use it. And yeah, I knitted this in 20 days, so a quick knit for me, which wasn't really supposed to be. I just took this off the blocking mat. I have just barely tried it on, so it's gonna be a little bit tricky for me to give you an idea of how it fits and if I think it fits well, but I do already have some thoughts, and I might just update you guys on it in a future vlog so that you have more of an idea of what I think of it. I'm going to talk about the numbers first, and then I'll talk about the construction and the modifications that I did. I cast this on the 4th of July, and as I said, I knitted it for 20 days. Today's the 24th. I bound off this morning on the second sleeve, and it got dry in a day, which is amazing. I did buy the yarn which was on sale, and also I used a gift card that my friends very kindly gifted to me. So actually I need to take a picture for them to show them that I made this with their gift card. And so because of that, I only bought like a small amount of the yarn myself, and so that cost was 26.22 euros. Pattern is around 6.50 something euros, and so the total product cost for this is only 33.19 euros, which is amazing. Obviously it's because half of the, or like even more than half of the yarn was on sale, but I also feel like Peer Gynt is quite cheap. I think it's around 5.50 euros a skein, and so I used 6 skeins of the blue and 5 of the almond tweed, and so it's just, you know, makes for less than, I would say around 80 euros probably for a sweater for my size. Now I knitted it in 4mm needles and 3.5 for the ribbing, I think, and I knitted the size small. I do think my gauge is a little bit tight, so it fits me, but it could have been a tiny bit looser and more oversized. I don't know why I used 4mm. I mean, I gauge swatched, and my swatch told me that I was on gauge. I think it lied, but also I should have thought, because I've used Peer Gynt before twice in projects, and both time I used 4.5mm needles, and one of those times was another Petite Knit pattern, so I should have just gone with the 4.5mm needles, and I don't know why I didn't. So I think I should have either done that or knitted a size medium for it to fit just a little bit better. It's also quite cropped, which I don't mind, but I do wish it was like 2 stripes, or like, yeah, 2 stripes longer. But I don't have a lot of the blue yarn left, so I don't think I could have gotten away with adding 2 more stripes. Although maybe I could have, because this is what I've got of the blue, so I do still have quite a lot actually. I have a lot of the tweed left, so I wouldn't have, that wouldn't have been a problem, especially because I do have that leftover skein anyway. But yeah, I don't know why I don't have more of the blue, and so I was really worried when I was knitting on the sleeve whether I would have enough or not. Turns out I did, and I think the sleeve length is okay. Like, I only tried it for a couple of minutes, so I didn't get around to like really noticing if it was good enough, but it's a good enough length. I do like my sleeves pretty long, but I think it's fine. But yeah, the body, I do wish it was a little bit longer, so I might live with it for a bit, and if it bothers me too much, I'll just frog back the ribbing and add 2 more stripes, and we'll see. I do find that the length is always a little bit tricky for me to get right in a pattern, because when I try it on, it's usually before I start the ribbing, and then once I start the ribbing, I'm like, well, I'm not gonna go back and undo that anyway, so I just keep knitting, and then it's only when I finished the bind off that I try it out again, and then I'm like, ooh, maybe it's too long or too short. But I do think I tried putting this one on top of my other sweaters that I like the fit of, and I think it was fine, so I don't know, maybe I didn't. Okay, let's talk about the construction and the modifications that I made. So for this project, you start off at the back panel, you cast on a certain amount of stitches, then you break your yarn, slip some stitches so that you're around the neckline, and then you start the German short shaping. Because you have the stripes, when you do the German short shaping, instead of really turning your work when you're changing colors, you're actually just knitting it regularly instead of doing like a double stitch and then knitting it. You just don't do that double stitch, only on the rows where you switch colors, which was really interesting. And I thought this would create holes, but it didn't at all, and it was really easy to do so. Now, because you have to like break your yarn a couple of times, you do have a little bit of ends to weave in at the beginning. Because I weave in my ends as I go, it's not too bothersome, so but I do recommend you do that for this, otherwise you will probably go mad with the number of yarn ends that you have to weave in. Once you've finished the German short shaping, you just continue knitting the back panel flat without any armhole shaping, and then you pick up stitches for one shoulder. I think you quickly have to do the increases around the neck. Same thing for the other shoulder, and that's where I did my first modifications. Obviously, you have to do a certain amount of increases, and depending on the size that you knit, you finish on a different row or like color stripe. For my size, I was supposed to finish on the light color, but I didn't love that look. I was looking at Petit Knit samples, and her finishes on a dark color like mine does, which is where I did my modification. And I was trying to figure out how she had that difference, like how she got to finish on a dark color, because you, for all the sizes, you start with the darkest color on the shoulder. Here, it's a bit tricky to show here. And so it really depends on the length basically of this, right? And I was looking at Ravelry projects to see if I liked the look of the light color against the dark color, and I didn't. So I decided to do more increases. So I basically did the number of increases for the size medium, so that I could get the dark color to be the same basically as my neckline, because I just think that looks a little bit neater. And so I've got the correct number of stitches for my size, which was size small, for the shoulders, but then because I've got those increases, I've got a couple more stitches than I should for my size for the body. I hope that makes sense. Then you obviously join the 2 front shoulders together, have some backward loop stitches here for the neckline, and then you knit the front panel flat again without armhole increases. And once you've reached a certain amount of rows and the same point on the stripe, so like depending on where you were on the back panel, for me it was in the middle of a navy stripe, and so that's where I had to end up on the front as well. Then you join in the round. I don't think you have any stitches under the arm to add, or at least not for my size, but I don't think there was any. And then you just knit in around the stripe, and then you've got just a bit of ribbing, and then you pick up stitches for the shoulder, for the sleeve. You don't have any German short shaping at the top of the sleeve, and you do have decreases in the sleeve, but I modified mine a little bit. Normally you have decreases all along the sleeve, but I was knitting away on it and I thought it just looked, when I tried it on, I thought it just looked a bit too tight for my liking. So I ended up removing 3 decreases for my size. So after, I think about here, maybe here, I don't have any decreases in the sleeve, and that's why it's looking a little bit less shaped than probably on other people's pictures. But I don't like a tight sleeve, and especially for this kind of project it doesn't fit a fitted sleeve. So again, I think that's probably due to my gauge, but just be on the lookout for that if you are like me and don't want a tight sleeve. I think if I had noticed it earlier, I probably would have done the same amount of decreases that I did, but more spread out, but I didn't, and I didn't want to go back. So I think it'll be fine, but yeah, that would have been what I would have wanted to do, I think. And yeah, then you have the same short ribbing on the cuff, and I'm really happy with it. I'm already thinking of knitting an Olga jacket, which I don't have yarn for in my stash yet, so that won't be quite soon, but hopefully at the end of the year or next year I would love to do it. And I already know which colors I would pick, but I'm not going to tell you. You'll have to wait and see. Obsessed and kind of mad to have knitted this so quickly. Let's move on to whips, because we've still got a lot to talk about. So the first whip I'm going to talk about is the girl dress by VertKnit, which I'm knitting in Knitting for Life Pure Silk in the colorway Olive, which I should have a skein of here, which is 100% Barrette silk, and I love this yarn. I've mentioned it so many times before, and my goal for in between the 2 podcasts was to knit the back panels and to add them to the dress, and that's what I've done. I've done maybe 1 centimeter on the skirt itself, but that wasn't my focus because I was focused on the Olga sweater, but I need to get back to it now. The countdown is on, because I've got about less than a month if I want to finish on time. I want to finish it a bit before the wedding, because that's my deadline, not my wedding, in case you know here. But yeah, I've got less than a month now to finish it, so I need to pick it back up. But I still have loads of end to weave in, so I do apologize. I will try to weave in some before the next podcast, because it's annoying me a lot. But this is the front of the dress, and this is the back. I knitted the exact same size for the front panels and the back panels. They're basically the same 4 panels, but I decided to attach them a little bit lower. So obviously for the front, they're just above the waist hem. For the back, I decided to do it at the bottom of the waist hem, and it looks a bit weird now because it's not on, and also probably because I still haven't finished doing that. I need to do that too. But when it's on, because the elastic is really tight against me, it holds up really well, so it looks quite good, I think. I'm still a little bit worried about the coverage for my bra, but I think I don't think I'll be able to really see until I finish the skirt and block this, and then only then I will knit the straps, because I want them to be really the perfect length. And so because of that, it's not really tight on my body, the front panels and back panels, and so I can't really tell if it's gonna hide my bra really well. But yeah, it was fairly, I'm not gonna go into the back panels themselves, but the way I attach them is I knitted them together the same way you do for the front panels. So basically you kind of overlap them and knit some of the stitches from both panels together. And then I attach them by picking up stitches using the pearl, like a pearl row, because it's on the inside of the dress. And then I did a 3 needle bind off. And that is how it's looking on the inside. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. It was a bit of a process, but it didn't take too long once I figured it out, and once I figured out like where I was placing it. But I think it's mostly centered and I think it'll be fine. So for the skirt itself, I did put a stitch marker last time, and that is how much I knitted since last time. So a bit over, like, I want to say 2 centimeters, so that's not too bad. I think that means I've got about 22 centimeters left on the skirt. So that's going to be my focus for the next 2 weeks. Hoping to get quite a way down. Probably, I mean, if I can get 10 centimeters down, that would be nice. If I can get, you know, finished, that would be even better. And then I'll have the hem of the skirt to do. And as I said, I need to finish off like this hem bit with the elastic. And then I'll block it, and then I'll do the straps at the very end, because the skirt is going to be quite heavy, and because of the block, it's gonna, you know, weigh down a bit. So if I do the straps first, I'm have to go back and shorten them, and so I would rather do it the other way around. I will probably err on the side of making them a bit short at the start, because they might grow a bit with wear. So that's also why I want to be finished a little bit before the wedding, because I'll probably try to wear it just once, maybe not even a full day, just a little bit, to see how the straps wear with the weight of it all. But it's a bit hard to show now because it's so big and so long. I'm not going to try it on this podcast, which I know is probably going to annoy some of you, but I would like to have like full kind of reveal at the end. So I hope you guys don't mind. And as I said, that's going to be my focus now. Now that I had that kind of Olga Sweater, like kind of an easy, mindless, fun project on the needles, I'm ready to go back to this and to finish it, hopefully, soon. My next WIP is one you've seen before, but I think it's been a while since I updated you on it. So I managed, I mean, I did in the vlogs, but not on the podcast. So I cast on a pair of socks at the beginning of the year. I don't even remember when. Finally finished the first one, and I started the second one. So these are the Quilty cabin socks by Haute Feather Fiber Arts, and they're really cute. I am knitting them in a hand-dyed yarn, which is BFL sock by Les Petits Points Parisiens in the colorway Écorce, which is 80% Blue Face Leicester, 20% nylon, and I'm pairing it for the contrast color. I'm using leftover Filcolana Avetta in the colorway 101 white, which is a basic sock yarn, which I really like. And so as I said, I finished the first one. I'm knitting the size 5, using 2.5mm needles for the main part, but for the colorwork you go up half a needle size, so that because colorwork is usually a bit tighter than the rest, and so I used 3mm for the colorwork. And then it's a simple heel flap and gusset, and you've got 2x2 ribbing for the cuff and just a regular wedge toe. And I managed to finish the colorwork earlier today on the second sock. Oh, it looks so good, I'm obsessed. And so now I just have to do the heel flap and gusset, and then the leg and the toe. That'd be nice. So I think I'm gonna bring this WIP with me to Brittany, because I think it'll be a nice project. Hopefully if I can finish it whilst there, that would be lovely. On the first sock, I messed up the chart, so you can see I've got one less row here than I do at the bottom, and so I decided to fix it on the second sock so it looks better. I think, on the second sock than on the first. But I don't think I'm gonna duplicate stitch it. I don't think it's too noticeable, so I don't think I'm gonna bother. I probably should, but I don't want to, so that's that. So yeah, just a quick sock update. I'm not really a sock knitter, so that's why it takes me forever, but they look cute, so I should get back to finishing them soon, hopefully. Let's move on to, because I'm starting to get quite hot, the sun is coming in. Let's move on to the whips that I cast on in the last couple of weeks. So if you've watched my latest vlog, I was filming for an entire week, and because I was heavily focused on the Olga sweater, I didn't realize that I kind of pushed myself a bit there, and so I knitted a lot on it and kind of hurt my shoulder again. Now, my shoulder isn't healed 100%. If you don't know, I've had tendonitis a bit because of knitting, and so I'm seeing a physio every week, but it's still a little bit painful. And I think when I was knitting on the Olga at the beginning, I just didn't take enough breaks, didn't stretch enough, and so the pain flared up a bit. My kind of suspicion maybe is that also I was only knitting on projects using the English style method, which is my usual way of knitting, but I've been trying to use continental for a bit. So my Marielle Blouse, for example, was knitted using that method to try and see if that helped with the pain. But as I said, once I finished the Marielle Blouse, I didn't have any other projects using that method, so I decided maybe what could help my pain, or like to not get as much pain, was to cast on another project with that. And so I decided to cast on the square neck camisole by Garner Slicked, because it's a pattern that I've been wanting to knit forever. It's been on my Make 9, it's been on my summer list, on my spring knit list, but I just didn't get around to it. So I am knitting it in Sunday by Sendness Garn in the colorway 5882, which I think is the marine blue. It's a little bit different than the navy by Sendness Garn, which is a little bit darker. Not the navy, the night sky that I used for the Olga. Hopefully you can see this one is a little bit more vibrant than this one, but I love that color. So yeah, I decided to cast it on using the continental method. I had made a swatch. My swatch was a little bit too tight even using that method, whereas I'm usually a little bit of a looser knitter when I use the continental versus the English side. I'm more of a tight knitter, but my gauge told me that I was a little bit tight, so I decided to cast on the large, but it's just too big. So you basically start with the straps, and then you cast on stitches from the straps for the front panel. And I mean, this is supposed to be ribbing, so it's supposed to be really squished, and then it's going to grow in blocking. But yeah, this is already too big. Now, I think what happened is that my swatch was actually the one that I did using the English style knitting. So I think I got myself there. I was sure that I had made a swatch with the continental, but I don't think I actually had. So it's also a little bit too loose, like it's a bit gapey. I don't love it. I don't know how you're going to be able to see it because it's navy. And also it's the strap, so I don't have a lot of stitches to show. But yeah, I was knitting on the straps and I was like, oh, it doesn't look like my swatch did, but maybe in blocking it's better. I don't know. But yeah, I'm just not happy with it. So, I mean, first up, it's too big, but even then, I think I don't want to use the continental style. So I think I'm gonna frog, and I think I'm actually gonna cast it on with the English style knitting because I just think my gauge is better. I don't really want to go down to 2.5mm needles to knit this camisole, so I'm using 3mm needles using the continental. So I think what I'm going to do is use the 3mm needles but using English style knitting. I think I'm gonna cast on a large anyways, and if I have to frog just this bit once I, you know, have knitted a few rows, that's fine. But I'm gonna reknit the straps using English style knitting, and then I'll figure out the size I'm making once I've, you know, actually cast on. But because it means I'm gonna not use the continental style knitting, I decided to, one, cast on the project, and two, actually put this on the back burner for now. I think I'm gonna finish the girl dress first, and once that's done, I'm gonna pick this back up and finally knit it. Even if it's the end of summer, I don't care. But yeah, this is not happening for now. So it's a whip, but it's gonna move back to a not even started project, don't know what that's called. So because of that, I decided to cast on another project using the continental method, and that is my Maggie Cardigan by VertKnit. I don't have full skeins with me, but hopefully you guys don't mind. I'm using Knitting for Olive Merino in the colorway Licorice, which is their black. So merino and soft silk mohair, if I can say. I love this combination, and I did swatch for this. Again, I think my swatch maybe lied to me because I've cast on the size extra small, because for this one my gauge is a little bit too loose, but I don't want to go down to 3mm needles. I'm using 3.5, and so I decided to cast on the smallest size that it should, based on my gauge, give me the size that I want. But I think I'm actually closer to the gauge than I thought. So because you start with the same number of stitches for the 3 smallest sizes, and I think I'm going to be making the third, so the size small. So I'm going to finish the, like, I'm going to keep following, like, it's the beginning. I just have the very beginning of the back panel, and it's a black, so you're not going to see anything. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish following the size extra small, and then at that point I'm going to, you know, block it, measure it again, and then I'm going to see if I need to keep going a little bit further to reach the size small before I don't remember what's next in the pattern, but it's probably something like you start shaping it a little bit differently. Like, I have a couple of more rows to do before I have to decide, basically. So I won't talk about the construction of this one because right now I have basically nothing, but I'm liking it and I love the fabric. It's going to be so soft. It's going to be gorgeous, and I'm excited to have a black cardigan one on the needles, and once it's done, in my wardrobe, because I don't have one anymore, and I've never knitted a black cardigan before, so it's going to be nice to have a hand knit one in the wardrobe. So I think it's going to be like really low stake, really low priority project, but hopefully I can get further than that in the next podcast. And I'll talk about the construction in that one because this has been going on for ages. I'm hungry, I'm tired, the camera is dying, so it's a whole thing. And I think I'm going to bring this project to Brittany as well. So a lot of projects I'm bringing with me, but you know. Let's move on to my acquisitions. As I said, I don't have any yarn acquisitions. I did buy some needles and cables, but I mentioned that in my last vlog, so I'm not going to go into it. But I also got a few project bags from VertKnit from her latest drop. It's not my first time having VertKnit project bags, but I really love them. They're really sturdy, they hold a good amount of yarn, a good project, so I really like them. I decided to splurge a little bit, and so I got the like kind of smallish project bag, but this I find holds a sweater project pretty well with the yarn and stuff. Like for the girl dress, I've got one of her old ones, and this holds the girl dress with not all of the skeins, but like 3 or 4 skeins as well, so that's a pretty good size. And it's a pretty basic, you know, fabric for this one, but it's really, the texture is really nice, and you've got pockets inside, and yeah, I really like this. And then I also really wanted to grab one of her like big tote bags. She had one in the previous fabric that I really wanted, but I didn't get to buy it before it was sold out. So I got this one, and it's huge and it's quite heavy. Like, this is empty and it's really heavy, but it's so big. It's got pockets on the front, and then it doesn't have any pockets inside, I don't think. Oh, it does. It does have one pocket. Oh, two pockets inside, basically the same as the front. And then you've got a drawstring to close it, which I find is a little bit tricky to use, but it does close, so that is nice, because I'm always looking for bags that close with my cat, who gets otherwise in the yarn, and that's a bit of a trouble. So I haven't used that one yet, but I think I'm gonna put all of my projects I'm bringing with me to Brittany in that, and that'll be nice. And probably, like, when I do big projects, I'll do it in that. So I think I'm actually gonna put my hibernating Dagmar sweater in here with all of the skeins, because they take up a lot of space. And finally, the last thing that I got was, if you know her, the Crea Bear, or Rebecca Clow, she's a pattern designer, but she's also designed a few t-shirts. And I was heavily influenced by Sarah from Two Pearls in a Pod. She wore her t-shirts that she bought from the Crea Bear a couple of podcasts ago, and I thought it looked gorgeous on her, and so I was like, I'm gonna grab that. And so I got this one. Hopefully you can see. I'll put a picture of me wearing it as well. This is a unisex t-shirt, so I don't think it fits me the best, but I really like it anyway. And I chose the size medium. The sleeves, because it's unisex, are quite long, as well as the body. And it's a little bit of a shame that the body is so long, because it means that I tend to put it like in my jeans, and so sometimes the bottom of the motif is kind of hidden. It's a bit of a shame, but it's not too bad. And I really love the color, because it's a bit of a creamy yellow, and then love the color of the graphic as well. So I'm really happy with that purchase as well. And I think it's always nice that I get to kind of support the Crea Bear, because I don't knit. I've bought a few of her patterns, but I've never knitted any. I started one and frogged it, but yeah, I really love her patterns. Some of them, not all of them, they're not all my style, but yeah, I think this is also a nice way to show her support, so that was good. I like that. And that is it for today. I'm starting to burn from the sun. So I'm gonna finish this off here. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. A lot of updates. I will try to do another podcast earlier than a month, in like 2 or 3 weeks maximum, because I think otherwise I just have too much to share. And I will also try to film a vlog whilst I'm in Brittany, so if you like the vlogs, I hope you will be looking forward to that. So as always, let me know what you guys have been knitting on. I always love to hear it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!